Good evening, everybody. This is your favorite aspiring classicist here, wandering author, reminding you that we're all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today, we're going over Book 7, Chapter 9, The Nature of Self-Restraint. I actually come up with these titles. Aristotle didn't give his chapters in titles, but still, where this one talks about the nature of self-restraint. And he opens it up by asking, is then a man self-restrained if he stands by principle or choice of any sort, or must it be the right choice? And is a man unrestrained if he fails to stand by a choice or principle of any sort, or only if he fails to stand by a choice or principle of by the true principle and the right choice? Perhaps the answer is that though accidentally it may be any principle or choice, essentially it is the true principle and the right choice that the one stands by and the other does not. So, when we talk about self-restraint, it matters about the type of choice that we display this virtue to. In the sense that if a man chooses or pursues B as a means to A is essentially, B only accidentally, his object and choice. Hence, while in a sense it is any sort of opinion, speaking absolutely, it is the true opinion that the one stands by and the other abandons. But there are some persons who stand by their opinion, whom we call obstinate, meaning that they are hard to convince and not easily persuaded to change their convictions. These bear some resemblance to the self-restrained man, as the prodigal does to the liberal. He means liberal person, like person that spends money, small amounts of money well. Look at my video on book 3 to see what Aristotle means by liberality. It's not what we think of today. And the reckless to the brave. So just like a reckless person kind of resembles a brave person, obstinate people can kind of resemble self-restrained people. But they are really different in many respects. The self-restrained man stands firm against passion and desire. He will be ready on occasion to yield to persuasion, but the obstinate stand firm against reason. They are not proof against desire and are often led by pleasure. Types of obstinacy are the opinionated, the stupid, and the boorish. The motives of the opinionated are pleasure and pain. The agreeable sense of victory in not being persuaded to change their minds, and the annoyance of having the decrees of their sovereign will and pleasure annulled. Hence, they really resemble the unrestrained more than the restrained. So obstinate people will hold back. They won't change their opinion even if you have true reason and you demonstrate that to them. They're going to just stand there and be obstinate. Almost like defiant. And there are some who fail to abide by their resolves from some other cause than a lack of restraint. For example, Neoptolemus in the Philoctetes of Sophocles, and that's a reference to a play written by Sophocles. It is true that his motive for changing was pleasure, though a noble pleasure, since it was pleasant for him to speak the truth, and he had only told a lie at the instigation of Odysseus. In fact, not everyone whose conduct is guided by pleasure is either profligate and base or unrestrained, but only those who yield to disgraceful pleasures. There is also a character that takes less than the proper amount of pleasure in the things of the body, and that fails to stand by the principle in that sense. So you can take too much or too little of pleasures, and Aristotle believes that's not good. I kind of think the people that take too little pleasures we might refer to as a killjoy. The self-restrained man, therefore, is intermediate between the unrestrained man and the type described. The unrestrained man departs from principle because he enjoys bodily pleasures too much. The person described does so because he enjoys them too little. While the self-restrained man stands by principle and does not change from either cause. So a self-restrained man is kind of like the temperate man in that they don't have too much or too little of these bodily desires. And inasmuch as self-restrained is good, it follows that both the dispositions opposed to it are bad, as indeed they appear to be. But because one of the two is only found in a few people, and is rarely displayed, unrestraint is thought to be the sole opposite of self-restraint, just as profligacy is thought to be the sole opposite of temperance. Many terms are used in an analogical sense, and so we have to speak by analogy of the self-restraint of the temperate man, because the temperate man, as well as the self-restrained, is so constituted as never to be led by the pleasures of the body to act against principle. But whereas the self-restrained man has evil desires, the temperate man has none. He is so constituted as to take no pleasure in things that are contrary to principle, whereas the self-restrained man does feel pleasure in such things, but does not yield to it. There is also a resemblance between the unrestrained man and the profligate, though they are really distinct. Both pursue bodily pleasures, but the profligate thinks it is right to do so. The man who lacks self-restraint does not. So the difference between a profligate and a person without self-restraint is the profligate believes that what they're doing is right, and an unrestrained man knows that what they're doing is wrong. They're just unable to control themselves and prevent themselves from doing it. And that's the end of chapter 9. So in this next chapter, we're going to look one last time at unrestraint, and then we get to talk about pleasure and pain tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this, make a video for tomorrow, for chapter 10. What are y'all doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your local community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love y'all.